Tried and failed, I tried and failed, oh, how I tried and how I failed.
Well, hello my friends. Episode 400, and it's a special one. You're gonna enjoy this. We're going to a country palace. Well, we are here. Well, happy 400, friends. The building behind me is the only place I could think of to celebrate our 400th anniversary. 400 years? Nah, 400 episodes. And that building right behind me is Buck Owens Crystal Palace. Now, Buck Owens pretty much put Bakersfield on the map when it comes to California country music. I've talked about him numerous times because he's one of those people that was famous for having those old great nudie suits. He kind of was the sound of Bakersfield with that chicken pickin', had that red, white, and blue guitar, and some of you may never have heard his music, but you probably know the song Act Naturally that the Beatles covered. That was a Buck Owens song. Buck Owens built this building behind me called the Crystal Palace in 1996, and for 10 years, right up until his death, and I mean literally up until his death, Buck Owens played a show here once a week, every single week for 10 years. Now, his health started to fail in the later part of the 90s, but from 96 to 2006, he performed here. And March 24th, the evening, he showed up here for practice before the event. His weekly gigs had kind of turned into bi-weekly, and just his health was starting to fail. And he came here and had his favorite meal, the country fried steak platter. Ate his meal, said, "Boy, that's my favorite thing in the world." And then said that he didn't feel too good and decided to hop in his car and he was gonna take off and actually forego performing the show. But as he was hopping in his car out back, a group of fans came up and said that they'd actually driven all the way here, hundreds of miles away from Oregon, just to see him perform that night. And he said, "Well, you know, there may be some creaks and whines and groans, but if you drove all that way to see me, I feel like I should perform." And so he decided to perform that night, went home, and passed away of a heart attack in his sleep. Now, who knows if that one particular night, if he wouldn't have performed that show, maybe it wouldn't have had any stress on his heart, and maybe he would have survived, or maybe he was going to pass away anyway, and that was our one last glimpse of feeling the magic that was Buck Owens. But for somebody like me who was heavy into Graham Parsons, Buck Owens was a heavy influence on Graham. And when I was in music school, I took country class, and one of the first songs they taught us was Buck Owens' Buckaroo. And Buckaroo is what Buck Owens ended up naming his band, Buck Owens and the Buckaroos. And the Buckaroos would perform here every night with Buck. Well, you know, like once a week when he performed. And tonight we are here because not only is the Crystal Palace a music venue that he always dreamed of, it's kind of in the vein of the Grand Ole Opry, but tonight the Buckaroos are performing. And this is also a museum dedicated to Buck Owens. So hopefully they'll let me film inside and we can go in and explore the beautiful world of Buck Owens. The man that brought us Act Naturally, Buckaroo, and put Bakersfield on the map. And if you're wondering who named the Buckaroos, why, it was Buck Owens' Bakersfield buddy Merle Haggard. Now take a look at the outside. It's basically set up like an old style Wild West saloon. Very fitting for a man like Buck Owens, wouldn't you say? I can't wait. I do not know a whole lot, but I do know that they have a statue to Buck. They have quite a bit of his memorabilia, some of his suits, some of his guitars, and this has been on the bucket list for a while to vlog, and I figured today was the day. Especially because, like I said, the Buckaroos are performing tonight. Now let's go on in and see what this is all about. And I want to ask him when I go in if Buck had a particular spot that he would always park in. I could see where his parking space was. This almost makes me want to come back because Chris Hillman's performing here. He was one of the Flying Burrito Brothers with Graham Parsons. Well, the lighting in here is a little weird, but there's Johnny Cash.
So I have 4 tickets at
Wow, check that out. The history of Buck. Wow. That's Bob Wills. Now that's one of the more famous Buck guitars that I recognize when I used to have a subscription to the country or the Guitar World magazines. They would always have pictures of him with that guitar. And there's an award to Buck. And look at that cowhide jacket. You can see the label says Buck Owens. So cool. There's his boots. So cool. Oh, look at that. Oh, man. So cool. And there's a bunch of the great records that Buck made. If you haven't heard his music, definitely go check out Buckaroo. That guitar riff was like, that was what made me a fan. Ah, Willie. Well, I got my seat right here in the venue, and there's actually a museum that wraps all the way around this place, and I'm gonna walk around and show us. But I wanted to show you this first. Buck's car, much like a Nudie car. It's got all the accoutrement that Nudie had in his car. Just like the one we saw in the Valley Relics Museum. He's got the horns, he's got all the emblems, he's got pretty much exactly the same way Nudie's was, really. So cool. So I was just talking to the bartender and he told me an interesting fact about this story. Now I just said that this was just like Nudie's car. Well, Nudie actually did design this. There were 3 of them. One of them is at Nudie's Saloon in Nashville that used to be at the Valley Relics Museum, and then the other one is owned by a country musician, but this one was actually the one that Nudie made for Elvis. And they said that the rumor was that Buck Owens had won at a poker game, but they said that it wasn't true because he talked to one of the Buckaroos and he said that they actually bought it in an auction. But if you look at the license plate, it still says Elvis. Look at that. Heck yeah. Look at all the memorabilia and all the pictures around the walls. It goes all the way around the place. This is amazing. Amazing. We have to go upstairs and see what the upstairs looks like, but let's go look at some of the museum now. Now check that out. That's one of Buck's suits. That's a Nudie suit. Look at that. Oh, and look at that one. That one's all rhinestoned. Oh, that is so cool. This is great. The museum is free. You got to pay for the food, obviously, and then because the Buckaroos are performing tonight, it's a $5 cover charge. Totally worth it. Look at that. Awards from all over the world. Now there's the poster from the Buckum album, and there's one of his guitars with the, look at that, the paisley inlay in there, and then look at that like fur coat. Now that banjo is actually, it says, a banjo that predates to the Civil War. And Dwight Yoakam and Buck Owens were definitely great friends. Now look at this. That album cover right there. Buck Owens and Buddy Allen. And then there's the outfit for it. Kind of a Martin and Lewis style outfit. Now here's a little bit more of the museum. Here's a statue to George Strait, who recently retired, but like a year ago. And this one is Garth Brooks. And then of course one of Buck Owens' favorites and good buddies, Elvis. Now here's Hank Williams, the original, the one and only, and probably my favorite country artist. And then on the other side, looks like George Jones. Yep, sure is. Pretty dark in here, guys. Sorry about that. Now, we didn't look in this case yet. And this case says that this is the original prototype of Buck's famous red, white, and blue guitar. Kind of like the rhinestoned one I showed you out in the lobby where we first came in. And there's a Telecaster that they kind of decked out in that same vein as well. And then over here, I believe this is the one I had read online, that this pink Paisley guitar, yeah, it was a gift from Marty Stewart right there. And then it says, this jacket was a prototype of Dwight Yoakam's clothing line. He gave it to Buck. Now it says that this suit, this green one, was Buck's Las Vegas 1970s outfit. Pretty cool. And then right here are some of his boots and another one of his rhinestone jackets. One of his microphones from his studio. Look at that. And there's another two of Buck's red, white, and blue guitars. And then there's a baseball from when he threw out the first pitch at a Dodger game. There's a Buck Owens guitar ad for the red, white, and blue guitars. And then, of course, Buck's red, white, and blue telephone. So cool. Now, can you see that picture in there? That's a picture of Glenn Campbell, Buck Owens, Merle Haggard, and Johnny Cash. That's great. Have you noticed in every one of these cases how many awards and letters of achievement he has? A lot of them are actually from Kern County and Bakersfield right here. Local hero. I'm a Buck Owens Tiger. Oh, look at that 12-string guitar. Buck Owens, honorary mayor of the day. State of Texas, hereby commissions Country Music Ambassador of Texas, Buck Owens. Okay, now we're getting into the stuff that I like. The more rhinestoney, these are all nudie style suits. Now this says Buck's Tiger by the Tail suit. Missing for decades, it was recently discovered and brought back to Bakersfield. Well, thank God for that. And then there are Johnny Knoxville's Converse, and it says these are the shoes of Johnny Knoxville wore in Jackass. He was a great fan of Buck's, and he and his crew visited the Crystal Palace several times. And then that is a hat that was given by George Strait to Buck. Now this is what we're talking about. A 1970s nudie suit with over 10,000 hand-sewn rhinestones. He wasn't messing around. When Nudie Cohen did something, man, he did it for real. All the way down to Elvis's car. Now look at this guitar over here. It's got the state of Texas in it. That's pretty cool. And they even have an entire little case right here dedicated to Buck's contributions to Hee Haw. See, there's Buck with a crew of Hee Haw. Let me get that glare out of the way. And then there's a Hee Haw shirt. And of course, if you're doing Hee Haw, you gotta have the overalls. Roy Clark. And then look, there's a Buck Owens Hee Haw lunchbox with he and I think that's Roy Clark. It's supposed to be Roy Clark. And a Buck Owens alarm clock. Classic. Chosen by the fans of country music as Gospel Act of the Year 1984 and Gospel Artist of the Year. Now this sheriff shirt is actually a costume that Buck wore in a TV movie with Gavin MacLeod, Jamie Farr, and Tony Danza called Murder Could Kill You. And he was the sheriff in that, and here's his boots and belt buckle as well. And then there's his script. There's another nudie suit. And this is one of my favorite things right here. Look at this. An autographed picture of Sparky Anderson. An autographed ball from Sparky Anderson. And then Reds pitcher George Culver. So apparently, Buck was a Reds fan. Look at that. It says the ball used by George Culver in his no-hit game. There's a picture of Buck and John Wayne, along with a Fender Telecaster that Buck used in the 60s. And that actually says that's a mid-1960s nudie suit, so you can actually tell by looking at the 60s and the 70s ones how much nudie evolved in adding more and more and more, pushing the envelope. Oh, it looks like the upstairs might be closed, at least over here. Look at all that memorabilia on the walls. God, it's hard to believe in like an hour I'm gonna watch the actual Buckaroos perform on that stage where Buck performed his very last show hours before his death. And I still can't get over this car. I cannot get over that being Elvis's nudie car. That is unbelievable. And it's actually the back where the roof is. It's all signed by people that have performed here. You can see that. All right, well, we made it through all the memorabilia cases. Now it's just wait for the show. Oh, I guess not. Found another few. This actually has a hee-haw casino game. And then that says that Evander Holyfield was a big fan of Buck's and sent him a sparring helmet. Evander Holyfield, would not have thought of that one. Now they don't have the upstairs open yet, so I can't get a view from there. But if they open it up while I'm here, I'll go up there. I just thought that neon sign up there was so cool. Oh, and here's another one. Here's actually a guitar that you see Garth Brooks playing, but it was actually a guitar made for Buck that Buck played. Now what this poster is of, is it shows, it's a little dark, it's hard to see, this one that says Pep, it says that the song Hot Dog is sung by a man named Corky Jones, aka Buck Owens. And Hot Dog is the one that when I went out to show you the Tale of the Pup out there that day, the first time I met Adam the Woo, that was what was used in Hot Dog, that Tale of the Pup. So if you go look up the Hot Dog video, boom. Now here are the stairs that Buck would have went up to enter his very own stage. This is where his band members would have stood and where he would have stood, and this is what he would have looked out at his very last night performing. Isn't that something to think about? All right, we're gonna go find our seat. And this gentleman right here came up to me, and he's a vlogger. What's your YouTube, my friend?
Connor 22 boy.
Connor 22 boy? Mm-hmm. We got you, my friend. So even though it sounds completely gigantic and takes over the whole plate, I did order the country fried steak entree because that was Buck's favorite meal. And I asked them if Jim Shaw, who was he was the original keyboard player in the Buckaroos, like while Buck was alive, and he was actually Buck's spokesman at the time as well of his death, if he was still in the band, and they said he will be here tonight and he's in the band. They brought me some biscuits. Now I purposely, since I'm trying to eat a little bit better, I purposely just didn't even eat anything today, and I figured eating here will be my one meal because I actually got here at 5:30 tonight. The museum itself opens at 11 and the country store is open during that time, but the restaurant doesn't open till 5, so I wanted to eat here and get the whole Buck Owens experience with his favorite meal. And I almost chickened out when she said it was a pretty big meal, but I figure if I'm gonna be here, who knows when I'll ever get to come back, so I might as well get the Buck Owens experience. And I just realized that they have Buck Owens postcards. So some of my next month's worth of Patreons are gonna get Buck Owens postcards. I'm actually waiting on my food, so I decided to come out and take a little closer look at this mural and buy a few things at their little store here and support them. There's a better view of Johnny Cash. Well, I do have to say I'm pretty impressed with the Willie Nelson statue because they got it all the way down to the names that he lets people carve onto his famous Martin trigger. It's been kind of a long-standing tradition that he lets his favorite musicians carve their signature into it. They nailed it. And I was actually wearing my Willie Nelson shirt today. All right, back to my seat. You're getting the full experience. There it is, Buck's favorite meal. Oh yeah, they're starting with Buckaroo! My favorite Buck Owens song. So the couple sitting next to me are really friendly, and they were telling me that their daughter used to work here and that she worked here when Buck Owens was still alive, and that Buck used to stand at the front door of the Crystal Palace and greet everybody that walked in, shake their hand and say thank you for coming to my Crystal Palace. How crazy is that? Amazing. So the couple sitting next to me are celebrating their 36th year anniversary, and they were telling me that the guy playing pedal steel over here at one point won The Price is Right, and when he won, he ran down the aisle like a cheerleader, and he said that all the gray-haired guys up on stage were original Buckaroo members. That's about 5 out of the 6. They just said that the guy over here that's lit up playing the guitar, he's been playing with the Buckaroos for 42 years. And that's him up there on the TV when he was a young man playing with Buck.
This is a Buck Owens song called Together Again.
Well, what a great time. Get to see a place where Buck Owens spent most of his later days of his life enjoying music, and I even got to have his favorite meal, the country fried steak entree. So good. Buck's American flag guitar. Well, gang, that's it. From Buck Owens, Crystal Palace. I'm so glad that there's a piece of his soul that lives on, especially being inside and talking to the people that were here when he was here, and the customers that were coming here when he opened this place. He sounded like just the nicest guy in the world, and everybody here loved him. And it's nice to see that his soul lives on inside the Crystal Palace. So if you're ever in Bakersfield, make sure you come out and check out Buck Owens Crystal Palace. Vlog 400 is done. From your old pal Jordan the Lion in Bakersfield, California, have a good night. Goodbye.
All seem to come together. Happy now, thanks for the failure. It all seem to come together. Happy now, thanks for the failure.